Hi guys, welcome to the third layer of awesome. This is the peak. This is part 2 of the peak, should I say. Obviously the last video we sat back and we discussed different periodisation models and the pros and cons, really what we see here at UP Performance as sort of the pros and cons from there, why people may argue against it or for it, but actually what you'll find is we take probably the elements that we like from all three models and actually have a model that's pretty close to all three in a sense, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. I don't train any actual Olympians, but I do train a Paralympian, and I have trained athletes in the past, but generally when they come to me to begin with, it's more about sort of building general fitness and building them back up to sort of levels of fitness that they've experienced in the past or want to improve upon. So I talk from a sense of when I structure people's training, it's generally to suit the goal that they have. Okay, so it's not necessarily, unless I know someone's going to be with me for 3-4 years, that'd be great. But there's no guarantees in that. There's no guarantees that they can afford to have the personal training for that long, or whatever may be the reason. So I can't plan too far ahead. We're always planning sort of in 6-week, 12-week, maybe 6-month blocks, maybe a year. If we're going through that, and then if they stick with it, we can change that emphasis and build upon that. Okay, so for the majority of people, we're going to look at general fitness, and I'll discuss that in a second, but then we can go a little bit more detail into it as well, depending on what your training is and how you can then take your training using this model. So, what do we take from the periodisation models? Okay, the 3 periodisation models we discussed. So we're looking at it. The thing we want to take really from the conjugate system is to train all qualities. Okay, so we want to train all the qualities at the same time. Okay, we don't want anything to lag. We don't want to lose endurance. We don't want to lose our muscle mass. We don't want to lose strength in terms of a massive percentage. You may lose a little bit of it as you emphasize something else. That's just going to happen as the body tries to, as it's accustomed to do, because it's trying to be the most efficient it can be. So if you're spending a lot of time doing endurance-based stuff, it's going to think, well, okay, maybe we can let go of some of this strength, some of this muscle, because we're working so much into this area. But if you're still training muscle, if you're still training intently with the weights, then you'll keep as much as you can, maybe 80-90% of the strength that you had as you go through that realm. And then when you come back to strength, you won't be starting too low and having to try and build yourself back up again. Okay, so train all qualities, but emphasize one in each cycle. That's an important part. Okay, and a cycle can be 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 3 months, as I say. So depending on what we're doing. So I'll explain that a bit more as well. So working blocks. Okay, so a cycle or block. Okay, working blocks of 4 to 12 weeks. To work on each quality. So through your year, you may find that you have particular times that you want to train certain qualities, or you may find you want to train certain qualities for a length of time and then move on to other ones. So that's how we work. So that's what we take from block periodisation. Okay, we work in blocks, or as we like to call them, cycles. Okay, so in blocks, you've got 4 to 12 week blocks that you can work by, or 4 to 12 week cycles that you can work by, 1 to 3 cycles. I keep throwing things in there, sorry. But that's the general idea. So that's what we took from block periodisation. That's what we really enjoyed about that. You should emphasise something. So maybe you should say, I'm going to work on my endurance for 4 weeks, and then I'm going to work on my strength for 8 weeks, and then I'm going to work on a bit of hypertrophy for 4 weeks, and then I'll come back to endurance. And then, so you might have a goal of getting stronger, but you don't want your endurance or your muscle to lag, so you can then add those in. So that's a quick example of it. But obviously working in like 12-week blocks, obviously that's more set. You can have 4 different top blocks for the year. Again, I'll explain that a little bit more in detail. But so that's really the main thing we take from the block periodisation. The third thing, and this is what we will take from the linear progression, is to have set dates to work towards. Okay, it's important that as you train, if you don't just love the process, if you don't just love training and just do it because you love the way it makes you feel and you love the way that it makes you perform, or you don't have anything particularly like you want to do, then that's great. You're going to train anyway. You're going to do different things. You're going to mix up your training, and that's absolutely fine. But it will always help to have something to train for, because when you have something to train for, you've got a set date in your mind and you can push towards that set date. Now, it's not good to have a set date that you're going to work towards that you then, once you get to that date, you then think, oh, well, after I've done that, I can just quit training and sit back on my ass and not do anything and eat pies. It's not the idea. The idea is actually to have set dates constantly through the year that you work towards, so that you can build and mold your body and be in the best shape you can be through the year. Okay, so it might be holidays. Holidays are always a good one to go by, because everyone generally takes a holiday through the year, even if you don't go abroad, even if you're just going out, or you might go to Southend or one of the beach resorts, or Brighton. There might be a point where the sun's shining, you're on the beach and you think, I'm going to take my top off here. But if you're not that confident to, then you're not going to. So that gives you an idea of a target you might aim for from there. Special events, weddings, birthday parties, just general gatherings of family, christenings, things like that. If you want to look good for a particular day, then obviously that gives you a date to work by. So that's another good thing to work by. So, you can already see, if you add special events and holidays in your year, you might have 3 or 4 different events that you will train towards. So it gives you a couple of things to do, okay? They're not competitions. You're not going to turn up and then just bench press the dining table with all the delicious sandwich trimmings and all the rest of it on it. But the idea is you're going to turn up, you're going to look good, you're going to feel good, you're going to wear clothes, and everyone's going to go, oh man, you've been training well, you're looking great. Even if it's just that you're looking for, that sort of positive kind of reinforcement that you're doing a good thing, then that's the kind of that's a good competitional sort of feel good factor. Keeps you going, keeps you motivated. Okay. And the last one, obviously, competition. So the competition is obviously probably the most obvious, but if you're an athlete or someone that's training towards a particular competition, then there you go. That is your purpose. You have those markers there. So something that I've done recently, I did the CrossFit Open. I've done the kettlebell pentathlons and stuff like that in the past as well. I will be hopefully doing other competitions this year, and then looking on to do the Open again next year to kind of remark myself and see where I am. So they're good markers to go by. So if you went by all 3, then obviously you'd have millions of different markers from there. So I would generally say pick 1 or 2 points of the year that you want to be either looking your best, feeling your best, or performing at your best. Okay. So how does that then break up through the entire year? Okay, so we've got 3 different examples here. Obviously I can't go through every single example and every single definite competition of each individual, but we give you a general idea. So then you can then take this and build upon it, or then start asking more questions regards how to periodise your training to myself, and we can work together on doing that. Okay, so for the general fitness population, for the people that just want to be fitter, stronger, leaner, working towards things like holidays and special events, you may have things that you're working towards. Then obviously you can mark those out in the year, and you can set particular goals through the year. But generally speaking, your main purpose through the year is to work on the general fitness side of things. Work on, everything in balance. You want to be stronger, you want to be leaner, you want to be, want to carry on a bit more muscle, you want to be able to go some good distances with some good endurance, okay, you want good mobility, all these things. Your diet wants to be in check. These things are just what you should be concentrating on all year round. You shouldn't have particular periods of time where you're working on one thing, working on the other. If you hit all the markers at the same time throughout the year, then you will get your end result, which is to be fitter, stronger, leaner. Yeah, so that's the idea. Okay, so general fitness should be just general fitness through the year. You may decide that as you're going through the year, if you're someone that's just generally fitter, you might think, between like October and December, I might do a strength block, and then or I might do a hypertrophy block, or I might do or you suddenly get a something come up, and you think, I'll train differently towards that goal. But generally speaking, as general fitness goes, just hit that general fitness through the year, and you'll get all the results you need. Now for competitions, this then changes. So if then suddenly you're doing general fitness, but then you're like, I've got a competition coming up, then I need to work towards. So the idea, obviously, as I say, this is going to be quite general because I don't know what your competition is going to be. But let's just say your competition is in April and you have another competition in October. Okay, let's just say it's a 10K race. Okay, let's just call it out. So you've got a 10K race coming up in April, and you've got maybe a 10 or a 5K race in October that you do, and these are your 2 marker dates that you set. Now, some people, they do a lot through the year, so it's a little different, but this is just a hypothetical sort of setup. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that through the year you have 2 different setups, okay? You either have specialised or you have alternative, okay? The idea is that you are, specialising before a competition to hit your peak, and then after the competition you're spending as much time away from the actual thing, the specialised exercise as you do, because you want to recover, recuperate and get ready for that next competition. Okay, so the way you would structure it through the year, whether you would do as long or as lengthy as this, depends what it is you're working towards, as I say. But if you were, for example, doing this 10k race twice a year, okay, so between January and March, for example, if it's leading up to April, I would suggest you work a lot more on your endurance. Okay, so you would be endurance training all the way up to April, because you want to make sure your endurance is at its peak position. You'd hit April, you'd do your competition, you would be in peak shape, you smash your 10k time, you get the PR, you think everything's great, you finish that, and then obviously you then have, say, 6 to 9 months until your next competition. So what are you going to do? Well, instead of carrying on with your specialised training and keep banging the same drum and keep trying to push the same envelope, what you should do is actually turn it back. During these period of times, between April through to about July sort of time, you probably want to start working on some strength work, some hypertrophy work. Maybe 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks you're working on hypertrophy, 4 or 5 weeks you work on strength. Okay, to sort of turn that muscle that you've built into stronger muscles, and then 12 weeks out or so before you get back into your running again, you then start specialising again and building towards that goal of that second competition. Okay, so that just gives you as I say, a very general, very basic idea. I've not really gone too much into it, but that gives you an idea of what I mean by the specialised and then alternative training. Okay, if your goal is, for example, a bodybuilding competition, then probably what you'll do is the opposite. So you'll actually be hypertrophy work, building and building and building as much as you can, getting the pump, getting the conditioning into the muscles towards that competition. And then once that competition is done, you'll then spend a bit of time away working more on things like strength and sort of just getting yourself away from that high volume work that you were building towards that bodybuilding competition. So as I say, you can take both extremes and just turn it into what it needs to be. But when you're training for competitions, there's specialised and there's alternative. Okay, how long you spend on each one is up to you or the coach to decide, depending on what that goal is that you're aiming for. Okay, and then you have a mix. Now the mix is probably my favourite, because it's probably what most general public people should probably do, in my opinion. If you're generally fit and you're not really got a season or a competition that you're building up to, this is a great way of just training through the year. Okay, and the way I structure it is, okay, that you have strength phase, you have a general fitness and endurance phase, and you have a hypertrophy phase. Okay, so for 6 months of the year you're going to be working on strength and hypertrophy, and for 6 months of the year you'll be working on general fitness and endurance. When do you fit what in? Well, my suggestion would be that obviously where you want to look your best, okay, that's where you'll fit in your general fitness or endurance training. So as we're in England and we work by the English seasons, okay, let's just say this is the summertime, okay, between April all the way through to September, you're going to be working on general fitness or endurance training as your main emphasis. Now you might just spend the whole of that 6 months working on general fitness, because obviously it covers your aerobic capacity anyway, and you don't want to emphasise it too much unless you want to work on your endurance too much. You might spend the whole of this period getting generally fit, okay, getting leaner, getting quicker, doing everything at the same time. And then when you come into the winter months, obviously then you can start putting on your jumpers, you can get a bit more fluffy, okay, you can add that little bit of extra weight. Then you go into your hypertrophy zone, okay, because during October and December, what's going to happen, okay? You've got holidays coming up, you've got lots of food coming out, you've got cold weather, you've got everything going against you, so you will think, you know what, I'm just going to take advantage of all these calories, of all this time when I'm going to not be outside because it's going to be cold and dark. Let's go for a hypertrophy phase, add some meat to the bone, okay? Then, from January through to March, you'll start emphasising strength a bit more, because obviously you've built all that muscle over the winter, and now you can take in a strength emphasis and start working on turning that muscle you've just built into stronger muscles, so that when you then come back into your general fitness, endurance style training, as you're trying to get leaner going into the summertime, then there you go, you've already got that extra bit of muscle to work from. Now whether you cut those shorter and you do 8 weeks instead and go from March and start cutting towards the summer, doesn't really matter. The idea though is it's sound improved from there. This is your season in a sense, that summertime you want to look your best, and then the other side of that is you're sandwiching performance-based goals, so you get your bigger muscles and you actually perform much better. Okay, so there you go, there's 3 models that we can work with gives you a general idea of what I mean by periodisation, how you structure your year, how you build towards particular goals. If you want more details or you have any questions of how you can get your sort of training geared towards your competitions, then drop us an email at kevin@upeakperformance.co.uk, or just get in touch with us on the Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram or any of those medias. Okay, guys? I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. I certainly have, trying to geek out with you. But as I say, any questions, let me know. If not, then I hope you enjoyed the video. Just be awesome, guys. I'll see you later.